interesting. Okay, so this goes into quantum a little bit. Imagine as the computers get better and better, we'll have supercomputers now. The speeds are getting much faster. You're able to do a boatload of things at speeds that were non-existent 10 years ago, as we know. The AI, therefore, is getting stronger also because the chips are getting better. With quantum, imagine what it's going to be 10 years from now when you have
Yeah.
the ability to do millions of commands and have them be functionable within a 1 minute, 2 minute span.
Yeah.
Someone
Quantum
gave a
is
warning, by the way. One of the big Bitcoin holders gave a warning a couple days ago that they are actually nervous about Bitcoin and its encryption being broken by quantum
hmm,
within a couple years, which I've been talking about for a while.
interesting. Yep, you have
And
been.
it's problematic, they admit, that if it isn't able to be solved with something called CCA, which is continuous configuration automation. In other words, updating software when there's a need via the so-called QA systems and development and R&D. If you aren't able to automate your software to mobilize against the so-called attacks via cybersecurity quick
Right.
enough, you're basically dead in the water with what quantum is going to do. That would
Yep.
be the so-called bad side of quantum, although I don't see that as being bad in the crypto world. They have it coming because they brag so much that their coding is robust, and all it is are
Yeah.
numbers basically
I've still got
created
my
in
doubts
thin
about
air. Yeah,
that whole thing.
yeah,
And can you
yeah.
imagine what will happen to the price of gold if that happens all at once?
If there was a downfall in the price of, yeah, that would be
Yeah.
interesting. But gold was also around when the big tulip bust happened in Holland. I wasn't around for that either. But, but, I wonder, that's a good question historically. What happened with the price of gold during the blow up with the tulip mania from the Netherlands at that time? I wonder if
I
the
don't know.
price of
That was
gold
a
went
long
up a
time
little bit.
ago. That was the
Yeah,
1700s, I think, wasn't it? Or even earlier. I don't know how many
I think it was a
exchanges there were
little
at the time.
earlier.
Maybe. But how many,
People were
gold
buying
exchanges
houses.
were there?
People were buying houses literally with a couple tulips. That's
Yeah.
how insane
Yeah.
it got.
Yeah, it got that way with pineapples too at one point when they discovered
Really?
pineapples. Yeah. And that's why pineapples, because they were so rare, they were difficult to ship back and you couldn't grow them very easily in Europe. And so it became this rarity back in, I don't know, the 17 or 1800s, whenever they were discovered and started getting shipped back. It was such a rarity to have them that, there are carvings still in Europe and etchings and things with a pineapple in them. Or like there'll be a painting of some wealthy person, you'll see a pineapple sitting in the bowl
I
there.
never knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know until recently either. But that's why.
Pineapples, where are they originally from?
I think they're from Hawaii.
I was going to say Hawaii too, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that's correct.
Maybe not. I mean, they're Polynesian. They would have wound up in Hawaii at some point. They were considered the fruit of kings back in Hawaii before, and only the king and his family could eat them,
Hmm.
supposedly. But Captain Cook discovered Hawaii in the, I want to say, late 1700s, I think. So then Europe would have been made aware of them only shortly after that.
You know what caught me by surprise with pineapples? I didn't know we would be discussing pineapples tonight. I would have bet more on kiwis because I've been eating a lot of them lately. Having said that, I was surprised to find out within the last year or so that pineapples grow on a bush. I always thought for some reason pineapples grew
What?
on a tree. Yeah.
I don't think it's either of those. I think they grow on the ground and they
Well,
sprout up like
like
the things they make tequila out of. What are they called?
that's a mescal plant, or is it
Yes,
agave?
I think it's both actually. But the same thing. They're coming up from the ground and like,
Well,
isn't
that's a
it?
bush.
That's I thought. Okay, well, if you want to call it a bush, I've seen them.
All
Kind of. You've
right.
been to Hawaii. You see them growing. They're coming up out of the
I've
ground.
not been to Hawaii.
You haven't?
I've never been. No, I haven't. Forgive
What
me.
the? Oh, you're one of those East Coast guys that goes
No,
to
I'm one of these
Bermuda
people
and
that like to go to
Puerto
places
Rico.
where no, I'll give you my theory on this because I decided about this a long time ago. Go to places that you where you might have to run while you're young, and go to the relaxing places when you're an old man. So that's how I wound up in the Middle East, because I can still run.
Sometimes you have
And
to.
yeah.
The Risk Reward Show is a weekly podcast covering current events in worldwide business. Headquartered in Los Angeles and Tel Aviv, with partners in Chicago, New York, London, Shanghai, Mumbai, and Cape Town, we source opinions and news directly from where they're happening and pass them along to you. Look for us wherever you get your podcast fix.
Is there anything else you want to talk about quantum? Any questions or anything?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted to bring it up as well. Quantum is the next AI. There's already, and it's interesting, there's already a number of stocks that are appearing that are undervalued from what I've been reading. I'm not going to mention what those stocks are because I'm not endorsing any, but it's something to keep an eye on, especially since, a lot of people I think are under this misconception that it's coming. But as you've been saying, it's already here and it's being used, and you just don't hear about it every day. And they are finding there are more and more discoveries about it, advancements, evolution about it daily. That this is going to come up on us a lot sooner than we think. So I think from an investment standpoint, and also just having your ducks in a row standpoint, career-wise, or just being prepared for what's coming. When this thing becomes mainstream, it's going to be even faster in terms of life-changing than what we've seen with AI. And it's coming. It could be before the end of the year we start seeing some rapid growth in that segment. You're more well-versed than I am, but I think it is worth bringing up occasionally here and keeping an eye on.
I think speed and processing is with us in a dramatic manner. I think quantum will spur on new investment opportunities like the dot-com bubble did. I think AI is important, but it will pale in comparison to quantum. Quantum isn't AI.
Yeah.
Quantum is using materials, theoretical physics, to basically build computing systems that don't work on so-called digital input anymore. What they do is work on literally quantum physics and moving things faster in ways that we cannot comprehend. They're still in the early stages, okay? There's really no one out there using pure quantum computing yet. But what they're getting close to is creating systems that have less errors. They've been testing now for years and years, and they're getting to a point mathematically where they're basically, kind of like we spoke about AI, to bring it up, a percentage of mistakes that are acceptable within quantum when you're using the system. And once they get to a mathematical threshold, which basically says we are able to function with the components we have and have speed that we can't even comprehend, really. As I basically said before, and I'm talking out of my ass here a little bit because I'm not a scientist, okay? You're going to have the capability of having something that works at pace that we're not ready for. It's going to create new industries, and there are definitely companies out there that are of interest. And people, all you have to do is type in quantum computing companies in your own geographies. There are companies turning up in England, in London. There's research. There's research being done in Spain, in France, in India, in Israel, Canada, the United States, all over, without even mentioning China, which is certainly getting into. It's literally an arms race because people know how important it is. Part of what we're doing to blow our own horn, as they say, over angry meta traders and the predictive company I'm working at is to work on doing research on quantum companies. Okay, so I'm not going to name those companies right now because I have a little bit of bias still, and I want to make sure my bias is not part of my dialogue when I'm talking. I need to know more and find out what's going on. I don't want to steer people in the wrong direction either.